Hey everyone, Scott Britton here. Welcome to the first module of Sleep Hacking 101. Let me first tell you why I'm so excited to teach this course. Until I started diligently studying sleep, I usually got around 7.5 to 8 hours a night. And despite, regularly getting the quote unquote normal range of sleep, I'd still feel tired. I couldn't figure it out. Over the past year, out of frustration for this, I've studied, experimented, and tested countless techniques on myself with today pretty amazing results. I now average about 6 hours of sleep a night, and to be completely honest, I've never had more energy. So what I think is really amazing is when you compound that over the course of a year, that in terms of that additional hour and a half, to be conservative, a day, that's an additional 30 days of waking time a year. I mean, think about what you could do with additional month of time every single year. It's pretty amazing. Now, I can't guarantee that every single person that takes this class is going to have the same results. In fact, I can guarantee that everyone who takes this class likely won't, because it takes a whole lot of hard work and discipline to get there. But my aim is to make sure you know all the information and techniques that I spent so much time trying to figure out myself so that you can achieve similar results if you want. So let's get started. In this module, we're not going to talk about a lot of the fun, awesome, bulletproof techniques. We're going to just start off by getting a base understanding of how our bodies and brains operate while we sleep and what those implications mean, so that you can understand all the stuff that I talk about later much better. So the first thing it's important to understand is, why is this worth a time investment? And because anytime that we try to do anything that's hard, we need to know why we're going to do it. So for me, the goal of sleep hacking and why I think this is important is I want to have as many waking hours every single day to do the things I love and to be productive so that I can achieve my goals while still being healthy, still having a high energy level, and still being able to focus so that I can get all the things done that I want to. And for me, that's why this has been a worthy investment of my time, and I think it's a worthy investment of your time as well. So before we get into the fun stuff, and learn specific techniques and strategies about how we can spend less time in bed and still feel energized, we need to establish a base level understanding of how sleep works. Now, when we sleep, we actually go through a 5-stage cycle that enables us to feel restored and energized the next day. And each stage really contributes to that recovery in a unique way. And I'm not going to get into the scientific specificality, like technicalities here, because I don't think it's incredibly important. But I do want to just give you a base level understanding so that all of this will make more sense as we go through the presentation. So let's first start at stage one. Stage one is the transition between when we lie down into bed and subsequently first fall asleep. This is a very light sleep, and it's really marked by the start of the production of slower brain waves. For most people, this stage lasts about 5 to 10 minutes. Stage two, this is when we really see our bodies start to undergo a more marked change. Specifically, things that happen are our body temperature starts to drop, our heart rate slows down, and all of these things begin to prime our bodies for deep sleep. Stage two typically lasts about 20 minutes, and although it still possesses restorative capabilities, I'd still consider it under the bucket of light sleep. Stage three is the first entree to what's considered deep sleep. The difference between deep sleep and light sleep starts with our brain waves, which pretty obviously affects a ton of different things in our body, because again, our brain controls our body. So specifically, deep sleep is characterized by even slower brain waves, to the extent that they actually paralyze our bodies, which allows it to heal properly. Stage three is like stage one, and that it's a transition stage. And the transition here is from light sleep to deep sleep, like in stage 1, it was wakefulness to sleep. Stage 4 is where we truly enter deep sleep. At this point, our bodies, our brainwaves rather, have really slowed down, and we actually enter into a state of paralysis. Different parts of the body experience the inability to move to a varying degree, but the important thing to understand is that this paralysis allows our bodies to recover. And I really like the way that sleep expert Dr. Sasha Gamenak describes it as turning the machine off so that we can repair it. The last and final stage of sleep, of the sleep cycle, is called rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. And this is when dreams occur and the state in which our physical bodies are most paralyzed. It usually happens about 90 minutes after falling asleep and only lasts 10 minutes. It's kind of funny to think about because I think about my dreams. Sometimes they seem like eternities, but typically it only lasts 10 minutes. Now the verdict is still out on the restorative benefits of rapid eye movement sleep, but most experts speculate that there is a positive contribution to cognitive recovery. Okay, to sum it up, these 5 stages really break down into 3 types of sleep, and that's light sleep, deep sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. And stages 1 and 2 are in light sleep, 3 and 4 are in deep sleep, and 5 again is that rapid eye movement sleep. I want to take you back to this chart that I briefly touched upon, and it comes from the National Sleep Society, and actually it reflects how a typical person essentially transitions through the various stages of sleep. And what you'll see here is that you'll notice that we'll actually start to cascade down until we go through that deep sleep cycle and then work backwards until ultimately we achieve rapid eye movement sleep and even maybe an instance of wakefulness. The important thing that I really want to point out here is that stage 4, you'll see that typically the longest and honestly most pronounced periods of deep sleep occur within the first 4 to 5 hours of the sleep cycle. And after that point, for most people, it actually tapers off. So, again, just remember this, that the first 4 to 5 hours for most people is typically when you get the most amount of deep sleep. So why is this important? Well, optimizing your sleep in terms of getting more energy, spending less total time sleeping, is all about achieving a quality sleep. Once you learn how to increase sleep quality, you can operate at a high level while sleeping for a less total time. And this is why you might today, or you might know somebody who's already getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep, but they're still tired and groggy. So the burning question is how do we increase sleep quality? Well, the greatest way to improve sleep quality is to improve our ability to get deep sleep. And this is why I'm going to focus on understanding deep sleep and specific techniques, strategies, and behavior changes we can essentially we can do in order to get more of it. And in terms of restorative capabilities, both physically and cognitively, deep sleep is the most important phase of the sleep cycle. Nonetheless, increasing the amount of deep sleep you get is going to go ahead and make the biggest difference in sleep quality. And it's actually, just to get back to that example of getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep and still feeling tired and groggy, that might be because it's when we don't get enough deep sleep when there's the highest correlation of daytime impairments like tiredness or drowsiness, headaches, the inability to focus. So that's why it's really important to understand deep sleep and know how to get it. So why is it, I want to come back to this graph because I want to talk about why it's possible to optimize our sleep. If you recall, again, the first 4 to 5 hours is when you get the most deep sleep, and then it takes off. So the way that I like to think of this is that there's diminishing returns to all that extra time in bed. And if you can really optimize those first 4 to 5 hours, you can sleep less and feel great and energized. And just to show you a first-hand account of this, I use this sleep tracking software called Zio. And you'll notice that Zio is basically a headband, and we'll talk more about it, that actually measures your brain waves. And you'll see that the in the first 4 to 5 hours of my sleep, these dark bars represent deep sleep. That's when I'm getting the most deep sleep. So you can kind of really, I just want to hammer home that this is why sleep hacking is possible. So what this means is, there's a diminishing return to all the additional time spent in bed. And this again is why we can go ahead and optimize it, and why this class even exists. One quick thing I want to clear up about the sleep cycle while we're talking about it is what I call the 90-minute misnomer. There's a lot of people out there, and you may have read this, that say your sleep cycle occurs in 90-minute intervals. And one of the things that we're going to talk about later is that waking up in the wrong part of a cycle can really affect your ability to feel energized, especially in the first couple hours after waking up. So these people will say that sleep cycles occur in 90-minute intervals, and if you just wake up at 4.5, 6, or 7.5 hours, you'll feel great. And I just want to go ahead and just nip this in the bud early and say that this is just wrong. Sleep cycles can take anywhere from 60 to 120 minutes. They vary person to person and often day to day, and they just aren't predictable enough to precisely determine how long they're going to take, thus when you should wake up. So we'll talk more about this later, but while I was on the subject of the sleep cycle, I just wanted to make sure I made this clear. So the good news about all these things and why this course can even exist is that we're able to control many of the variables in our lives that affect the quality and quantity of deep sleep, which ultimately means that we can make changes to be more rested, have more energy, and spend less time in bed. And that's what we're going to talk about in the subsequent modules, with specific tactics and strategies. So this concludes Module 1. In the next module, we're going to discuss the largest variables that really account for the foundation of a lot of the concepts that I'm going to talk about, but really getting an understanding of how these large variables affect our deep sleep will ultimately put you in a position to use a lot of the strategies that we're going to talk about later.